it now.
No, so that's off. So he's got nothing to do right now.
How about that?
Or at least nothing to do as far as the match goes.
So Nikki and Brie were in the ring, and Nikki did this promo.
You missed that the Bellas are nominated for Teen Choice's favorite female athlete.
Yeah, both Bellas.
Yeah, well, whatever. It's a popular vote thing, so people vote, they'll vote, whatever. It's just ludicrous. It's seriously ludicrous.
You haven't been watching Total Divas, Dave. Nikki is the John Cena of this division. She's turned this division around. It's on fire right now. Are you aware of that? You wouldn't be if you watched the show because Stephanie buried the division, but we'll get to that. Nikki did a promo, said she's been champion since November. It's been 232 days. She's on the road to 300. Said she's given every diva a chance, and she's beaten them all. She's the definition of fearless. Whether it's TV, movies, or wrestling, she is the total diva. Team Bella is unstoppable. So he's ranting, and finally Stephanie comes out. First, we get the deal where she's upset that another girl thinks she runs this place. I own WWE, she says. She doesn't.
Well,
that's
whatever.
the storyline. She buries the division, saying there clearly isn't the right level of competition here in WWE. Says the women are making their mark in soccer and tennis, UFC, and in WWE, and it's time to make a change.
Tennis. Like, this is something new in tennis.
Yes, brand new.
Think about this. 40 years ago, 45 years ago, frickin' the women were making their mark in tennis. The soccer is, 15 years? How many years in soccer?
You're asking me? It's been a while.
Wasn't late 90s when Mia Hamm and all them and,
Sure. Point is, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. UFC's only been 2 years, so I can give her that one. It's kind of new. The soccer thing, obviously, and the tennis thing were in the news in the last, week. But it's not like, the soccer did do really big ratings. It did, but the soccer did giant ratings in the first time they won the World Cup. And, tennis, my God, there have been, women's tennis has been a popular sport for 40 years, more than 40 years, 45 years, maybe longer. 45 years is only since I'm aware of it, but probably before that. So, but I guess it's the thing to say today. Whatever. They're ahead of the curve. We know that.
Sure, yeah. So Steph called out Paige, and Nikki's ranting. She doesn't know why Paige is there since she's failed over and over. And Steph cuts her down again and says, "Listen, Nikki, Paige is courageous, but she can't do this by herself. I've got backup. I'm starting with this girl who's scratched and clawed her way to everything she's ever gotten." She calls out Becky Lynch. So Becky comes out, and the fans have been going woo for a while. They're in the Ric Flair woo. And Steph then, of course, calls out Charlotte, and everybody cheers that she's there. So then out come Naomi and Tamina, and Naomi says, "Listen, we're all the competition Nikki needs. When are we going to get our chance?" And Steph essentially says, "Well, you need a third person." And so she calls out Sasha Banks.
This is like the freaking teacher is like assigning teams.
Yeah. So the teams that have been assigned, by the way, are the Bellas and Alicia, Charlotte, Becky, and Paige, and Tamina, Naomi, and Sasha. So Sasha is still a heel here on the main roster.
Even though they turned her babyface on NXT.
That's right.
Which was to get her ready to team with Paige.
Funny how that works.
Well, that's what happens when the storyline changes on a weekly basis.
So this broke down into a giant 9-person brawl. It ends with Team NXT putting the Bellas in simultaneous submissions. They run off. Team NXT and Team Naomi square off, and Stephanie smiles proudly on the apron because she is responsible for this renaissance. And let me tell you, this better renaissance because it wasn't much here tonight.
Well, it's, it was what it was.
This was not what I expected. Let me tell you that.
No, it's not what I expected either, but Stephanie was going to be involved no matter what. That's just how it was. It wouldn't be, it's like when Stephanie was going to be involved running ECW and, that's just how they think. So given those parameters, I mean, it's just week one. Who knows? I mean, it's not what I would have done. I mean, I would have done a complete facelift. But to their credit, they tried to emphasize they had and this is the announcers, and the announcers did do the right thing where they kept trying to say, this is the start of a new era, and they tried to tell you it was a facelift. Now I'm watching this and I don't feel it's a facelift. Time will tell if it is or it isn't. They have to follow up. I think they will follow up. So I'm not like, I mean,
they're going to follow up, but I mean, are these going to be? Well,
I mean, here's the problem. If it's going to be them being mixed in with these other women, we may have a higher quality of matches, but will it be really? Well, put it this way. Okay, we're trying to compare this to Serena Williams, Ronda Rousey, and the soccer team, right? Okay, ain't gonna happen because they're because, and I'm not saying because it's fake wrestling, but because to do that, what you have to do in an individual sport is you have to make a superstar, and they didn't introduce anyone.
They got one, Nikki.
Yeah, right.
Have you not been watching Total Divas? Come on.
Yeah, but she's not because she obviously she's not. Okay, so if they wanted to introduce whether it was Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Charlotte, whatever, if they want to introduce any one of them as a superstar and redo the division around them and have those kind of matches, one of them should have been set aside to be a superstar as opposed to introducing three people at once and they're all kind of there. And it's like if you watch NXT, you know who they are. If you don't, it's like, well, they added two new women and Ric Flair's daughter, and they added Ric Flair's daughter, and she does a bunch of chops and people go woo. I mean, that's pretty much what it was. And she bridges on her head when she does figure four. So, I mean, as far as that goes, it was a start. Now, the follow-up, you got to make them individuals. They can't just be a bunch like 9 women running around, because 9 women running around ain't gonna. It's not a facelift, especially when you still got, so many of them that work that style that's not gonna get over. And I even wonder about the costuming. I mean, I wrote this. It's like, and it just reminds me when I was in Japan in the early 90s. And this is when Debbie Malenko was being introduced. And Debbie Malenko was a very, very, very pretty girl in those days. She may very well be now for all I know. But anyway, she was then. And they were talking. I just remember being in a conversation with not management, but with one of the people who brought her in and her. And they were talking about costuming. And the whole thing is we want you to be taken seriously as an athlete. So she had really good abs, as I recall. And it's just like, we want you to cover up your stomach. Because if they start looking at your stomach, then they're going to look at your ass, then they're going to look at your boobs, and you're going to be a sex object. And whether you're good, bad, or indifferent, they're going to think of you as something that we don't want them to think of you as, which is not an athlete. And it's kind of, I mean, that's kind of overstating something, but it really rang in my head about, when they got their women over, those women were over as athletes, and they were 1,000 times more over than the women here have ever been, other than Sable, but Sable's a completely different thing. These people aren't trying to be Sable. And Sable was a big star. I mean, and I guess some people argue China was a big star, but, that was really insane booking that got her there. But that, which isn't going to happen now. They're not going to be putting these women over the guys, nor should they. But it's like, I just think that if you want to redo it, you really need to redo it. And if they're going to be out there as sex objects, they're not going to be respected as athletes, no matter what they tell you or anything like that. Now, granted, I did see, these women were costumed like they were on NXT, and the crowd, for in San Jose, or even it's not in every city, when Sasha Banks and Charlotte would wrestle, they gave them incredible respect, and they stole the show many, many times. and they could main event, they could go strong semi, and tear the house down in that position and be real stars on the show as opposed to just something thrown in because we have to have women on the show. So it's not like it's a must that you have to do it that way, but I kind of think that a change that would kind of signify a change as well, because the whole idea is you want it to be completely different from this point forward, and telling you it's different when everyone's still the same and half the women are the women from before, and those women may not be able to wrestle this new style. If the big thing comes down to, let's just say, Sasha Banks against Nikki Bella, just throw out a match where they go in there and go 15 minutes. It'll be okay, probably, or maybe it will be less than okay, maybe a little even bit better than okay, but it ain't going to be great. And that's like where you start. To me, it's like you really should get that out of the way as quick as possible. Because if you want to make a statement, you got to make it first. There's nothing, it's like first impression, or else, you know what I mean? You need that big first impression. So, they need to come in, and the first thing they need to do is have a fucking kick-ass match. And the kick-ass match isn't with Nikki Bella, and it's not going to be with Tamina Snuka, and it ain't going to be with Naomi either, for that matter. And if they go in there and have half-ass matches, then how do you, do the gradual thing? Maybe, and not how I would do it. I would go in there, have a statement, and go in there, and they're either gonna sink or swim, but it's new, and you tell everyone it's new. You don't blend them in. So, but they're gonna blend them in. They have to blend them in because you got John Cena's girlfriend, and you got the Total Diva show is actually a huge reason for it. You got that show, and you can't just ship these girls out. So you got to do what you got to do. You got a lot of masters, and maybe it'll work. It'll work to a degree because they're going to push it, and they're going to, it's their project. They can't let it fail, and it will, and they're talented enough that it won't fail. But first week, I will just say that
this was more sink than swim.
I would say it's treading water. I wouldn't say sink. It wasn't bad. The people kind of got into it at certain points when they were all in there. They had This Is Awesome channel. That was a kind of a, that Pavlov's dog, This Is Awesome, because nothing was really all that awesome. I sort of cringed. Charlotte's first move was that drop kick, which is like, oh my God. But it was fun. It really was. It was okay. A lot of people were talking about it. They didn't kill it, but it wasn't presented in a strong enough way, but it was the only way they were going to do it. Because, would I involve Stephanie McMahon? No, of course not. And then Stephanie's out there, she's supposed to be like this big heel, and she's out there being a total babyface because she's got to take credit for it. If anything, Paige is the one who's been like screwed with over and over. Shouldn't Paige be the one to have brought them in?
Nah, Mom's got to come and solve the problem.
I know that. And their feeling as well, it won't have credibility if Stephanie doesn't do it. And it's like, that's freaking bullshit. It'll have credibility if they go in there and they do something really good. And this was just a schmoz. It was 9 women running around doing a bunch of moves, and nobody was focused on. The only one who came out as a star was Stephanie, and the secondary star was Nikki Bella. And the other ones, and Charlotte was an excuse for people to go woo. And the other ones didn't do anything of any note. They were there, and they, Becky Lynch ran around, did her pose, but she wasn't focused on it or anything like that. But again, it's only the first week. It's they've got time to make their first impression and have their first match. But it should be with each other, and it should be singles matches at first to get them over. And I don't think that's happening. I think we're going to just have them stuck in a Divas division and do a bunch of 3-way 6-man tag matches, what it looks like, right? But, 6-man tags where, well, we'll see.
We had the New Day against the Primetime Players and Mark Henry. Primetime ran wild early.